Hello again, and welcome to the 27 July 2018 edition of Portsmouth This Week. I'm your host, Doug Smith, and we have a very special guest back with us today, Secretary of State for Rhode Island, Nellie Gorbea. Welcome back, Nellie.
Thank you, Doug. Great to see you.
You know, I really consider that for the next couple of months, you're going to be the most important person in Rhode Island. Because
Thank you.
What you're trying to do is keep our elections secure and safe. So I appreciate you taking the time to come down and visit us in little old Portsmouth.
No. This is a great program. The kind of civic duty that you're doing here is phenomenally important. To be able to inform our citizenry on the East Bay about what's going on is key.
Well, it's great that you come all the way down this way. It's got to be a little bit different from the Providence scene. So.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's one of the beauties about being able to be a statewide candidate and a statewide general officer is you get to see the beauty of Rhode Island.
Yeah, and it is a beautiful state.
It is a beautiful state.
Let me get right to elections. Our election systems and their vulnerabilities, and there are some, we'll talk about those, are very much in the news these days. And I know from your letter to the editor a week ago and some other stuff on your website that you've been working very hard to make sure Rhode Island elections are as secure as possible. So what are some of the recent things you've done? I know there's a laundry list.
No, there's a laundry list, but over the past 3.5 years, I've been working diligently to make sure that our infrastructure for elections security and in the Department of State is really strong. And so the first thing I did when I came in was to hire the right people. We have IT professionals in the Department of State that are able to have conversations with the Department of Homeland Security, with people who are sophisticated and able to assess the vulnerabilities of our system. So that was the first thing, because the people that you work with, your team, is absolutely key and essential. We were able to purchase new state-of-the-art voting machines, at the core of which is the paper ballot. That's the most important security item of our election system, the paper ballot. But in addition to that, there's 3 other layers of security to make sure that the results are what they should be. Just this past year, the General Assembly passed an audit bill. So we will be doing risk-limiting audits of the results of elections. And we being actually the state, but it's really the Board of Elections is going to be handling that, and they will be piloting it this election season. So that, again, you check to make sure that your systems are doing what they're supposed to, that they're counting the ballots the way they should, and Rhode Islanders can rest assured. And then we did things like, for example, in 2016, when the Department of Homeland Security offered us the ability to check our systems, to test them, I absolutely signed up. I think I was one of the first Secretaries of State to sign up because I wanted to know if there were any vulnerabilities in our systems. So consequently, by the time the 2016 election came around, we had strengthened ourselves. We had done a lot of improvements. We continue to do that. Over the past year, one of the things that we focused on a lot is all 58 or so employees at the Department of State have undergone training on cybersecurity, because a phishing email could come in through the state archives or through business services. It doesn't have to come. It's not just classically a hacker going into voting machines or anything like that. Right. It's these other entryways into your systems, and so we've been working with our staff so that they can recognize and act appropriately and not click on phishing emails that might compromise our systems. So we've been doing a lot of different things to make sure that Rhode Islanders can trust the integrity of our elections and trust that their vote is going to be counted right.
One of the things that I've been wondering about, because we see that, at least from the top levels of government, nobody's put a lot of effort into the stuff at the top, it seems. But then I read your letter to the editor, and apparently the Department of Homeland Security has been holding things, funding training and a bunch of other stuff. So do you think at the top levels, like that would be the Department of Homeland Security, I assume, have they started taking this stuff seriously?
Oh, absolutely. I have to say the Department of Homeland Security, during both administrations, the Obama administration and the Trump administration, has been working diligently with the states. They recognize, as does the entire intelligence community, the risks to our elections and our democracy from foreign actors like the Russians. This is something that there's broad uniformity of belief on, And so,
with a lot of evidence.
with a lot of evidence. I myself have participated in security briefings, and we have been told in no uncertain terms, and are free to discuss this with everybody, that the thing about this sort of foreign actor involvement is it's here to stay, and we need to continue to monitor, assess, remediate our systems, stay ahead of the bad guys all the time. And fortunately, we do have partners in the federal government that will be working with us on this.
See, there's a lot of the stuff requires money, just about like everything else. Training requires money, just about anything you do. Are we funded well enough, do you think?
So, that's
You seem to have done a great job of getting Rhode Island up and
yeah, and I'm very proud, and in fact, I was just speaking to the House Committee on Homeland Security about all the different things that Rhode Island has done. I have to give a big shout out to our General Assembly leadership, the governor. I mean, they've really taken seriously what I've said to them. We absolutely need to invest. Some of it has been reallocation of existing resources as well, and just knowing that we needed to do this at this point in space and time. We just received $3 million from the federal government under the Omnibus Budget Act, and we're diligently, putting that to work on really strengthening for example, our systems for the voter registration systems. So make sure that we can secure and make sure that nobody can get into our databases. So I was just telling Congress the other day, I mean, this is not going away. Cybersecurity is not a destination. It's a continuous path that we're on for the foreseeable future. And Congress needs to go and provide ongoing funding for the states to be able to do this right, particularly since the learning curve and the building of the systems is, I mean, in some states, they're really going from zero to really fast.
Yeah. I just read somewhere this morning, I guess, very recently, the 19th of July, the Senate was voted against providing more funding. I mean, it seems like it's an uphill battle, and I think it's very ironic that Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country, has gone way ahead of everybody else, is what it looks like to me.
No, well, we are a leader. And, and it was a community process, right? So not just did I strengthen our Department of State, but recognizing that, elections are community endeavors. I held the first ever cybersecurity summit for local officials in the country over at Salve Regina University. And we brought in Jim Ludes from the Pell Center, and then Professor Francesca from their cyber unit there at Salve Regina. We have these resources. I've engaged Brown University's computer science department as well, and URI. I've been leveraging other resources to make sure that we can serve our constituents.
Now, I was particularly interested in that tabletop exercise, they called it. I spent a lot of my time in the Navy doing war games, which is the same thing. How did that work out, and what did the people take away from something like that?
No, it was wonderful. So we invited all of the boards of canvassers, the clerks, the local election officials that are on the ground to do a tabletop exercise where they would pretend to be, 4 different communities with different roles than what they usually have. So you could be the communications director for the municipality, even though in real life you're a clerk. Yeah. So you assume that role, and then you were given what we called injections every, X number of minutes. And this is new on the scene. The reporter, the press wants to know, why this polling location hasn't opened, or they've noticed that, all of the 18-year-olds are missing from the voter lists. Different scenarios to just make sure that people have in their heads, what am I going to do if something happens on election day? Yeah. And it was very well received.
I found those things to be very effective because what they really do is they get all the players talking with the other players, so they all have a sense of who does what to whom.
That's right. So after the exercise, we had a convening all together, and we talked about lessons learned. Oh, that this person did this and this person did that. Yeah. It's really quite helpful. And again, it's something that we intend to do on an ongoing basis. We partnered with the State Board of Elections, and so it was extremely well received.
Good. I think that's a great way to do this thing. One of the things, we talked about this last time, but just for to get us all on the same page.
Sure.
I want to just walk through the ballot process. Yes. We all are familiar with going into the polling area, filling out a paper ballot, sliding it into the machine. What happens after that?
Well, after that, at the end of the evening, the machines are shut down,
Right.
There are different security devices that go into play. There's a certain accounting that happens by the poll workers of the number of ballots that are left over, if there were any that were ripped or destroyed because of, sometimes a voter will want to cancel their ballot because they made a mistake. So all of that accounting happens. And at the end of the evening, once the machine is turned off, there is a transmission that happens through a Wi-Fi transmission that delivers unofficial results, not the official ones. The official ones are the ones that are actually in the machine, and they're verified. Once that happens, then those are the official results.
Okay.
So, but I wanted to also talk a little bit about, because everybody's very familiar with Election Day, what I'm trying to instill upon people, because I'm trying to make sure that everybody who's eligible can and does vote,
absolutely. That's part two,
is to talk a little bit about two areas that people don't know about as much, which is there are 3 ways to vote in Rhode Island. Sure, you can vote on Election Day, but you can also vote by emergency ballot 20 days before the election at city or town hall, or even better for some people, you can have the ballot mailed to your home and vote by mail. We have that here in Rhode Island.
What is the time frame of that, though, before the election? Is there a certain...
So there are certain deadlines. So I'll start with the first deadline that people need to know about, which is August 13th is the deadline to be registered to vote.
Okay.
So if you are not registered, August 13th is the deadline for being able to participate in the September 12th primary election. I encourage anybody seeing this show to go to vote.ri.gov. Check your voter registration. Let us know if there's something that's amiss or wrong. Maybe, sometimes younger people, they move a lot.
Yeah.
They forget to update their address. And then by the time they show up on election day or when they go to vote, it's too late. You can't change your voter registration at that point. So go now to vote.ri.gov, verify your address and how you're in the voter record. If you can't find, for some reason, your name there, call us at 222-2340. We'll do a deep dive and check to make sure that everything's okay for you. All right, so you have to be registered to vote by August 13th. Then the next deadline is for mail ballots, August 22nd. So you go to the vote.ri.gov website, click on the buttons that point you to how do you vote by mail, and you can print out the application to get a ballot mailed to you. And that application goes to your local town hall, to the Board of Canvassers there, and then we'll send you a ballot to your home. Now, the ballots that are mailed to your home have to be in no later than 8 p.m. at the Board of Elections. So if you're in Portsmouth and you find yourself on Election Day and you haven't mailed it, it's too late. You can't just postmark it on Election Day. You have to mail it a few days beforehand to make sure that it gets in.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'll be able to check to see if that has been counted and put it on that website. But if for some reason you still hung on to it, you're going to have to drive it to the Board of Elections before 8 p.m. and you don't want to do that. So that's the only caveat with mail ballots. But it is a much more comfortable way to vote for many, many people, and you can look at the ballot with time and figure out what you're doing. So after August 22nd, which is the deadline for getting mail ballots sent to you, August 23rd up to September 11th, those 20 days before the primary, you can show up at city or town hall and say, I don't know that I'm going to be able to vote on Election Day. Can I have an emergency ballot? It used to be that you had to swear that you had a medical emergency, that you had a business trip, that all these, you were somehow incapacitated. That's no longer the case. There's a fourth option that says, I don't think I'm going to make it to the polls on Election Day. And so then you'll have some paperwork to fill out, and you can just vote right there and then and put it into the secrecy envelope and then have it accounted later.
Yeah.
So
now, the good thing about our system, it seems to me, is there's a paper ballot.
yes.
Those paper ballots presumably the paper ballots themselves, the pieces of paper, get put together and under lock and key, I would guess.
Oh, in the machines? Absolutely, yeah.
And get taken somewhere, right? And then are those generally backup, or do somebody actually...
So that's where the risk limiting audits is going to be great, because what it's going to allow the Board of Elections to do is to sample some small numbers of races and then see whether the results come out right.
Yeah.
And so instead of having to recount everything, it's a very well-designed process. Colorado is using it right now.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going to happen going forward. It's going to be piloted in this election, and then the law requires that it be fully in place by 2020.
Okay. Because the electronic data that was read by the machines goes up, like you say, through Wi-Fi or something, right? And that goes up to the state? Is it up
It
to you
does, goes
guys?
to the State Board of Elections. But there's also a thumb drive. Actually, there's 2 thumb drives that are encrypted, and that if they're tampered with, give an alert. There's the tape, the little receipt that the machine spews out with the results.
Yeah.
So you have a number of places where the count is held, and of course, as always, the most secure thing, which is the paper ballot itself. That
Yeah.
if anybody had any questions, you just go back to the paper.
Well, we were talking earlier, the cybersecurity is a big focus because it's just people can understand people trying to hack in, et cetera, et cetera. That's a hard one because it's always going to be changing. There are constantly have people finding different ways to do this. But the other one that's really worrisome, I think, is information warfare, essentially. And what this is basically somebody puts something online about one of the candidates. The guy's a pedophile or something. And all of a sudden people look at that like it's news. And it's really hard to erase that in people's minds. And that's all it would take is just to skew the elections, stuff like that. Is there anything we can do about that? Or?
So the Secretaries of State at a national level have had several conversations with some of the, for example, the social media companies like Twitter and Facebook, and now I have a contact person at each of those companies that if I saw something of concern, we would be able to get a hold of them. They themselves understand the gravity of the situation and have been putting additional measures in. So, for example, on Facebook, you can no longer pay to put up a political ad unless you've been certified as a real political candidate. So I had to go through this process where you sign up a certain number of things online, and then they send you a paper letter to your home address, and it can't be, so it has to be a physical address, and then you sign that, and then you use that to code put in another code. So clearly we're starting to address some of those issues from the private sector social media companies, which are the real, because if somebody just post something once, it doesn't stick for the most part. It's the repetitive nature of posting. So, we continue to have conversations with these companies to make sure that they help us protect our democracy. It's very troubling. What the Russians did in 2016 and have been trying to do in other parts of the world to destabilize liberal democracies.
Yeah.
In the case of the U.S., it uses our own strength as a democracy, which is our First Amendment, as a weakness, because they will, incite, not create new chaos, they just incite existing chaos and vitriolic statements. And so if there's anything I wish for our country would be for us to pause and be less at each other's throats and to try to listen, as much as sometimes it's painful to listen to a very different point of view.
Yeah.
But we need to take that time to pause and not just jump on someone, because you don't know, particularly if you're seeing it on the internet, whether that's really being said by the person or not.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that would be useful is just to make sure people are educated that they can't automatically believe everything they read. And if they see something like that's scurrilous against one of the candidates or whatever, they should look into it and try to figure out, is this true or not?
Absolutely.
And it's one of these things that people have to do.
Yes.
In other words, you can't do it for them. You'd love
I know.
but you can't.
Although we can have conversations with our kids in the schools, and I think a lot of the schools are starting to do a lot more, because I see it with my own kids. I've got 3 daughters who are school age.
Good luck.
And I see some of the work that they're doing in school, and some of it is this testing of assumptions. Just because you see it in a particular website doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
By the same token, I've worked really hard to improve our civic knowledge of our kids. So, For example, if you go to the Secretary of State's website, the general one, the sos.ri.gov, you'll find a link to teacher resources. Those are resources that the teachers have to explain Rhode Island government and civics. We have one page that's my favorite, which is questions about your municipal government. So the child walks through and says, okay, so what kind of form of government does your town have? Well, it turns out if you move from Portsmouth to Providence, you're changing the lower part of your ballot as an adult.
Yeah, that's right.
Who stops and tells you that?
Yeah.
If you haven't had that opportunity as a child to think about the fact that we have mayoral forms of government, we have elected mayors, appointed mayors, city managers, town managers, at-large town councils versus ward-based town city councils, nobody knows. And so again, it goes to that point of educating our citizenry about our government.
Exactly, and yeah, as I say, I've been on your site. It's dynamite. It's got a lot of stuff. So we're gonna root for you guys getting through this election. I need to ask a couple other questions though, because one of them is you have a business portal on your Secretary of State website. How does this portal help people who are either looking to go into business or those who already have established business?
Yep. No, so I'm very excited. We just released the latest version of our business portal. And it was done, first of all, it was like all of our programming of our website, it's done by state employees with your and mine taxpayer dollars. I believe very strongly that government needs to own its technology. It also makes it a lot more, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to adapt to changing needs. So we created, within the business assistant, there's an area called Business Basics that walks people through, topics for new business owners that they tend to have, what the whole process is, that include developing a business plan, acquiring a name. What are those additional community resources? There are organizations out there like the Center for Women in Enterprise, SCORE, which is a civic organization that works, including out of our own office, working with small business people to help them get started and grow. So we've concluded a lot of that startup information on our website. And then, you can always reach out to our office to 222-3040, and a real person will answer your questions as you're going through it, which I think at the core is what people need from their government. I ran because I wanted to make government work for people. And the web, as great as it is just not enough sometimes.
That's
and
right.
So you can pick up the phone if you're stuck or there's somewhere you don't know where to start. You can call my office, and we have real people who will walk you through what it is that you need to do.
Real people.
Yes.
I could think of that. One of the problems that on your portal you have a corporation database of companies, but it doesn't allow a search for, say, Portsmouth businesses. And our current, there's a disconnect in numbers. Our current tax office list of businesses has about 400. While the state list has about 900, over 900. How can the town get more in sync somehow with? So
there's a number of things. So that's some of the things that I'm hoping, should the voters re-elect me in November, I'm hoping to, in my next 4 years, is to really work more on improving our corporate database. I started the process in this term, but we have a lot more to go. Things like, instead of just uploading PDFs, which are very hard to provide data, to do it in a way that's a searchable database by things like how many businesses are in Portsmouth or what kinds of businesses, data like that I think will be much more informative to the public. The syncing that needs to happen as well is that you can incorporate a business or register a business in your city and town, and this is usually the sole proprietor type stuff.
Right.
You don't have to do it at the statewide level as well. So those 450, although I'm sure there's some overlap, could be additionally to the 900 on our Department of State website. What I hope to do in the next 4 years is to take a look at that, and is there a way, since I've already developed a database, can we help the cities and towns in a particular way so that the revenue will go to the city or town. I'm not looking to take any revenue, but can we do it through one portal that everybody gets registered so that we have better information both for the municipality and for the state.
Sounds like a worthy goal.
Yes.
For your next term.
Thank you.
That's great. You're charged with a lot of things. I mean, we talked about this last time.
I love my job.
Yeah, it's great because it covers just about everything.
Yeah.
One of them is maintaining an open and transparent government. How does that work out? I've gone to these briefings if you want to be on a committee and how to hold meetings and stuff. How can you guys help citizens get involved in government?
So this is one of the last areas that we're improving under these 4 years. And sometime in the fall, in the early fall, we will be able to show you a brand new open meetings website. Now, let me just state that we are the repository or the filing cabinet of open meeting information. So any meeting of state or local government, whether it be the town council or the zoning board or the airport corporation, they all have to file meeting notices posted 48 hours before the meeting and with the agenda on our website.
Yeah.
Then the meeting minutes have to also be posted with us. We're now looking at a renewed site that will provide you with a lot more information about what's happening in your city or town in terms of these meetings. If you have a concern about a particular meeting notice or a particular activity that happened that should have been advertised and wasn't, those complaints go to the Attorney General's office because he's the one who's got the power to actually make sure that people are following the law. Having said that, just as we're taping this right now, there's an open meetings workshop that's happening at Roger Williams University this morning by the Rhode Island Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
So, but my goal is to make that website even friendlier and more accessible so that people can hold their government accountable. We already, you are able to get email notices. So for example, say you wanted to know when the Portsmouth City Council's meeting and what the agenda is. You can get an email from our website right now giving you that information. But we're going to make it even easier in the next iteration.
One of the things that I was a chairman of a committee in town, and we had the chairman of this, this little committee we had that worried about the Bristol Ferry Town Common, had to file the same thing, and it just seemed like overkill.
Well, and I'm going to push back on that. I think it's really important. I get it's hard sometimes when you have all-volunteer setup.
That's it, yeah.
But think about sort of what's lost in terms of transparency and open government if we don't require everybody to do it. And so I'm a real big believer in those requirements and having people notify the public as to when you're meeting, what you're talking about, and what's being done.
Yeah, I mean, on one level I can understand that, but on the point of view of doing it, it's just an additional thing that's kind of tough.
So what we tried to do with the Open Meetings portal is to make it easier. So instead of having to take it or send it to the town hall and putting it on and then having people have to go to the posting board on city or town hall, you can now just do it out of your laptop.
Nellie, we're out of time.
Oh, shoot.
No, I would like to talk to you for another hour, particularly about election stuff. Thanks so much, and good luck to you going forward. And we really appreciate all the hard work you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's it for us. See you next time.